The morning sun filtered through the curtains of my childhood home as I sat at the breakfast table, laptop open beside my plate. My father's disappointed sigh cut through the peaceful silence before he even spoke. 28 years old and still working in pajamas, Dad muttered, shaking his head as he poured his coffee. His tone carried that familiar mixture of disappointment and contempt I'd grown accustomed to over the past 5 years. When I was your age, I had a corner office, a secretary, business cards with embossed lettering. I took a sip of my orange juice and continued typing an email to my chief operating officer. Everyone works remotely now, Dad. It's efficient. Efficient. He practically spat the word. That's what failures call unemployment these days. Remote work. Freelancing. All fancy terms for can't hold down a real job. My mother entered the kitchen, already dressed in her tennis whites despite the early hour. Her eyes landed on me with immediate disdain. Sweetheart, you're still here? I thought you had, whatever it is you do. I work from here sometimes, I said quietly. My schedule is flexible. Mom exchanged a knowing look with Dad. Flexible schedule. That's another one of those phrases, isn't it? Like when people say they're between opportunities or exploring their options. I'm doing fine, Mom. Fine. She laughed, the sound sharp and cold. Your brother Michael just made partner at his law firm. Your sister Jennifer is chief surgeon at Presbyterian Hospital. And you're fine. Working from your childhood bedroom on whatever internet thing you're pretending is a career. I closed my laptop gently. It's actually going very well. Is it? Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Then why are you living in our house? Why don't you have an office building with your name on it? Why have we never seen a business card, a company logo, anything that proves this isn't just some elaborate excuse to avoid growing up? I travel a lot for work, I explained, keeping my voice even. It doesn't make sense to maintain a permanent residence when I'm rarely in one place for more than a few weeks. Travel. Mom's laugh was even sharper this time. What kind of business travel doesn't involve hotels? Real executives stay at the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton. They don't crash in their parents' guest room between business trips. The doorbell rang, interrupting her monologue. Dad frowned at the interruption to his morning routine. That'll be the newspaper delivery, he said, rising from his chair. At least some people still maintain traditional business practices. The Wall Street Journal, delivered to my door every morning at 7:30. That's consistency. That's professionalism. He disappeared into the hallway. I heard the door open, a brief exchange of pleasantries with the delivery person, then silence. A long, heavy silence that seemed to stretch for minutes rather than seconds. When Dad returned to the kitchen, his face had gone pale. He carried the newspaper in both hands, holding it away from his body as if it might explode. His eyes moved from the front page to my face, then back to the paper, then to me again. What's wrong? Mom asked, her tone shifting from mockery to concern. Harold, you look like you've seen a ghost. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. I continued buttering my toast, keeping my expression neutral. I'd known the article was publishing today. My publicist had sent me the advance copy 3 days ago. I'd chosen not to mention it, preferring to let the news break naturally rather than try to explain something my parents wouldn't believe anyway. Harold, you're scaring me, Mom said, moving to his side. She looked at the newspaper and the blood drained from her face too. That's not. The 30 under 30 who changed everything, Dad read aloud, his voice barely a whisper. Front page. Wall Street Journal. And the main photo is. He couldn't finish the sentence. Mom snatched the paper from his hands. Her fingers trembled as she held it up, comparing the professional headshot on the front page to my face across the breakfast table. Back and forth as if she couldn't quite believe her own eyes. Alexandra Chin, 28, took a failing logistics company and transformed it into the fastest-growing supply chain technology firm in North America. Mom read, her voice gaining strength with each word of denial. Her revolutionary AI-driven platform now serves 400 of the Fortune 500 companies, processing over $2 billion in shipments annually. Chen's net worth is estimated at $1.2 billion, making her the youngest self-made female billionaire in United States history. The kitchen fell silent except for the humming of the refrigerator. I took a bite of my toast and chewed slowly. This is a joke, Dad finally said. Someone's playing a prank. They photoshopped your face onto. It's the Wall Street Journal, I said quietly. They don't photoshop their front page stories. Mom's hands were shaking so badly she had to set the paper down on the table. But you told us you worked in logistics. We thought you meant you drove a delivery truck or worked in a warehouse. I do work in logistics, I confirmed. I just never specified my role. Your role, Dad repeated, the word barely audible. He sank back into his chair. The article says you have 12,000 employees. Offices in 40 countries. A fleet of autonomous vehicles that's disrupting the entire transportation industry. I nodded. 14,000 employees now, actually. We just opened 3 new regional headquarters last month. Singapore, Dubai, and Sao Paulo. But Mom gestured helplessly at my laptop, my casual clothes, the breakfast table. You're here, in our house, eating toast. I told you I travel constantly, I said. I stay here between board meetings and investor presentations because it's easier than maintaining an empty apartment. Plus, the guest room has good Wi-Fi. Dad's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. Within seconds, it was vibrating continuously with incoming notifications. He picked it up with trembling hands, his face going from pale to gray. They're all calling, he whispered. Everyone from the club. The partners from my firm. Your Uncle Richard. Everyone's seen the paper. He looked at me with something between horror and disbelief. They're asking why I never mentioned that my daughter was a billionaire? I supplied helpfully. Probably because you never asked what I actually did. You just assumed. Mom's phone started buzzing too. She stared at it like it was a live snake. It's Jennifer. And Michael. And your Aunt Susan. And, oh God, it's the president of my book club. She looked up at me with wild eyes. What do I tell them? The truth. I suggested. That you didn't know. Didn't know, Dad repeated numbly. Our daughter is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and we didn't know. The doorbell rang again. Through the front window I could see a white van with a satellite dish mounted on top. A news crew was setting up cameras on the lawn. That would be Bloomberg, I said, checking my phone. My PR team said they'd want a follow-up interview for their evening segment. I can ask them to come back later if this is a bad time. Bloomberg News is here, Mom said faintly. At our house. For you. A young woman with a clipboard appeared at the kitchen window, peering in. She waved enthusiastically when she saw me. I waved back. That's Rachel from Forbes, I explained. They're doing a cover story for next month's issue. The Reluctant Billionaire. Or something like that. My publicist thought the whole living with my parents angle would humanize me. Humanize you, Dad echoed. He seemed to be stuck in a loop, repeating phrases without fully processing them. My phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID and answered. Hi, Margaret. As I saw it. The Journal did a great job with the photo. I listened for a moment. Sure, I can do CNN at 4. And yes, I'll wear the navy suit, not the gray one. Another pause. Tell Jim at the Times that I'll give him 30 minutes tomorrow morning, but I want editorial approval on any quotes about my family. I glanced meaningfully at my parents. Some things should stay private. I ended the call to find both my parents staring at me as if I'd grown a second head. That was my publicist, I said unnecessarily. Today's going to be busy. I have 3 television interviews, 2 radio spots, and a live-streamed Q&A with Harvard Business School students. Oh, and the Secretary of Commerce wants to have lunch next week to discuss supply chain resilience and national security. I should probably take that meeting. The Secretary of Commerce, Mom whispered. She's very nice, I said. We met at Davos in January. She had some interesting ideas about reshoring manufacturing that align with some of my company's initiatives. Dad's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen and let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. It's my senior partner. He's asking if I can arrange an introduction. His firm wants to discuss handling some of your company's legal work. My general counsel usually handles those requests, I said. But I can mention it to him. What firm does your partner work for again? You know what firm, Dad said weakly. I've worked there for 30 years. I've told you about it hundreds of times. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Have you? I'm sorry, I must not have been paying attention. I was probably too busy working on whatever internet thing I'm pretending is a career. The words hung in the air like acid. Mom actually flinched. Another car pulled up outside. This one was a black SUV with tinted windows. Two men in dark suits got out, speaking into earpieces. Security detail, I explained. My board insisted after the journal article went public. Apparently being a billionaire comes with certain risks. I stood up and stretched. I should probably get ready. The Bloomberg interview is in an hour, and I need to change into something more professional than pajamas. Wait, Mom said desperately. Alexandra, we don't understand. How did this happen? When did this happen? I paused in the doorway. 5 years ago, I took out a business loan and bought a failing logistics company that was about to go bankrupt. 3 years ago, I developed the AI platform that revolutionized supply chain management. 2 years ago, we went public and the stock tripled in the first day of trading. Last year, we acquired our 3 biggest competitors and became the dominant player in the industry. I shrugged. You were at all the family dinners where I tried to explain what I was working on. You just weren't listening. But you never said, Dad started. I told you I was in logistics, I interrupted gently. I told you I was developing new technology. I told you I was traveling to meet with clients and investors. You heard delivery driver, because that's what you wanted to hear. It was easier to be disappointed in me than to ask questions. The doorbell rang again. Through the window I could see more news vans arriving. Neighbors were starting to gather on the sidewalk, phones out, filming the scene. This is going to be quite a spectacle, I observed. The whole neighborhood is about to learn that the failure living in her parents' guest room is actually running a Fortune 100 company. I hope you're ready for the attention. Ready? Mom's voice cracked. How could we possibly be ready for this? You weren't ready to believe in me when it mattered, I said simply. Now you don't have a choice. My phone rang again. This time it was Michael, my lawyer brother. I put it on speaker. Alex. His voice was frantic. I just saw the journal. Tell me this is real. Tell me my baby sister is actually... Hi, Michael. Yes, it's real. But you always said you worked in shipping. I thought you meant you worked at a UPS store or something. I work in shipping, I confirmed. I just ship about $40 billion worth of goods annually. Silence on the other end. Then, can we have lunch? I'd really love to discuss some business opportunities that might interest. I hung up. They'll all be calling now. Everyone who dismissed me, ignored me, or made jokes about my career at family gatherings. They'll want lunch meetings, business introductions, investment opportunities. Dad's face had gone from gray to red. You let us look like fools. All this time you could have told us and you just let us believe. I tried to tell you, I said, my voice hardening slightly. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, I mentioned that my company had just been valued at $800 million in our Series C funding round. You laughed and said I must mean $800. At Christmas last year, I told you I was testifying before Congress about supply chain infrastructure. You assumed I meant I was applying for a government warehouse job. But you never corrected us. Mom protested. Would you have believed me? I met her eyes steadily. If I had sat you down and said, I'm a billionaire CEO with thousands of employees, would you have taken me seriously? Or would you have told me to stop exaggerating and get a real job? Neither of them answered. A knock at the door interrupted the tense silence. I walked to answer it, my parents trailing behind like bewildered children. A woman in an impeccable gray suit stood on the porch, flanked by the security team. Ms. Chin? I'm Sarah Martinez from Bloomberg Television. I know we're a bit early, but with all the excitement from the journal piece, my producers wanted to get you on air as soon as possible. Is now a good time? Perfect timing, I said. Please come in. I just need 5 minutes to change. Actually, Sarah said, glancing at my casual clothes and the chaotic family scene behind me, would you mind if we film you like this? Our audience is fascinated by the billionaire next door angle. The CEO in pajamas having breakfast with her parents. It's refreshingly authentic. If it helps the segment, I agreed. Sarah's crew moved efficiently, setting up lights and cameras in our kitchen within minutes. My parents stood frozen in the corner, watching like statues as their breakfast table transformed into a television studio. We're live in 3 minutes, a cameraman announced. Sarah settled into the chair across from me, her producer clipping a microphone to her lapel. Miss Chen, the journal article has generated incredible buzz this morning. Social media is exploding with reactions. Everyone wants to know about the young woman who disrupted an entire industry while living in her childhood home. I smiled. I'm happy to discuss it. 30 seconds, the cameraman called. Sarah turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, would you like to be in the shot? Our viewers would love to hear from the parents of America's newest billionaire. Mom and Dad exchanged panicked glances. I don't think. Dad stammered. They're a bit overwhelmed, I said smoothly. They only learned about the journal article about 15 minutes ago. Sarah's eyes widened with journalistic delight. You mean they didn't know? Your parents didn't know you were running a billion-dollar company. I tried to tell them, I said. They weren't particularly interested in the details of my work. 10 seconds. Sarah turned to the camera, her expression shifting to professional excitement. The red light blinked on. Good morning, I'm Sarah Martinez, and I'm coming to you live from the suburban home of Alexandra Chen, the 28-year-old CEO who shocked the business world with this morning's Wall Street Journal cover story. Miss Chen, you're the youngest self-made female billionaire in U.S. history, and yet you're sitting here in your parents' kitchen in pajamas. Tell us about that choice. It's not really a choice, I said calmly. It's practical. I travel constantly for work. Board meetings in Tokyo, factory inspections in Germany, investor presentations in New York. Maintaining an empty apartment doesn't make sense. My parents have a comfortable guest room and reliable Wi-Fi. It works. And your parents, Sarah leaned forward conspiratorially, they just learned about your success this morning? They knew I worked in logistics, I said carefully. We may have had different interpretations of what that meant. Behind the camera, Dad had gone pale again. Mom covered her face with her hands. The journal article describes you as ruthlessly efficient and strategically brilliant, Sarah continued. Your company's AI platform has revolutionized supply chain management for Fortune 500 companies. How does someone so young achieve that level of success? Hard work, I said simply. Long hours. Surrounding yourself with talented people. And perhaps most importantly, not caring what other people think of your choices. Speaking of choices, Sarah said, you've been remarkably private until now. No social media presence, no previous interviews, no public appearances at industry events. Why reveal yourself now? The company went through a major acquisition last month, I explained. We're now the third largest logistics firm in the world. That kind of growth attracts attention whether you want it or not. My board felt it was time to put a face to the name, to tell our story before someone else told it incorrectly. My phone buzzed on the table. The screen showed Jennifer calling. Then Uncle Richard. Then 3 unknown numbers in rapid succession. Sarah noticed. Looks like you're in demand this morning. It's been an interesting few hours, I agreed. Your parents are standing right there, Sarah said, glancing off camera. Would they like to say anything? Mr. and Mrs. Chen, how does it feel to learn your daughter is a billionaire? The camera swung to capture my parents. Dad's mouth opened and closed silently. Mom looked like she might faint. They're processing, I said diplomatically. It's a lot of information to absorb before breakfast. Sarah laughed. I can imagine. Miss Chen, what's next for you and your company? We're expanding into autonomous delivery vehicles, I said. We've already deployed 3,000 self-driving trucks across North America. By next year that number will be 20,000. We're also developing drone delivery systems for rural areas and exploring opportunities in space logistics. Space logistics? Someone needs to handle supply chains for lunar bases and Mars colonies, I said with a slight smile. Why not us? The interview continued for another 20 minutes. Sarah asked about my education, my business philosophy, my plans for the future. I answered each question calmly and professionally while my parents stood frozen in the background, occasional visible in shots when the camera panned wide. When we finally finished, Sarah shook my hand enthusiastically. This was fantastic. You're going to be everywhere by tonight. Every major network will want an interview. Are you prepared for that level of attention? My publicist is, I said. She's been preparing for this moment for 6 months. As the crew packed up their equipment, More cars arrived outside. I recognized the logos. CNN, CNBC, Fox Business, even a crew from a major morning show. The circus has arrived, I observed. Sarah followed my gaze. You're the hottest story in America right now. The mysterious billionaire who lived in obscurity. Everyone wants a piece of this narrative. They can wait their turn, I said. I need to shower and change into actual business attire before the next interview. I left my parents standing in the kitchen, still surrounded by camera equipment and bewildered expressions, and went upstairs. In my room, my childhood room with its outdated paint and old tennis trophies, I pulled out one of the designer suits I kept in the closet for important meetings. My phone rang. Margaret, my publicist. You're viral, she said without preamble. The Bloomberg clip is already trending on every platform. #PajamasBillionaire is the #1 hashtag worldwide. The journal article has been shared over 2 million times. This is beyond anything we anticipated. Good, I said. That was the goal, wasn't it? Maximum impact. Your parents really didn't know? They didn't want to know, I corrected. There's a difference. The human interest angle is gold, Margaret said. CNN wants you for their primetime slot. The Today Show wants you tomorrow morning. Forbes is moving your cover story up to next week instead of next month. And, this is big, 60 Minutes wants to do a full profile piece. Set it all up, I said. I'll do whatever's necessary. How are you holding up? This kind of sudden exposure can be overwhelming. I looked at myself in the mirror. Same face I'd always had. Same person. Just dressed differently. I'm fine, I said. I've been building toward this for 5 years. I'm ready. When I came back downstairs in my navy suit and professional makeup, the scene in the kitchen had evolved into controlled chaos. My parents sat at the table, surrounded by their phones which wouldn't stop ringing. News crews filled the front yard. Neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, some holding signs that said things like, "We always knew," and "Neighborhood Pride." That's ironic, I muttered, eyeing the signs. Mrs. Patterson told me just last week that I should stop mooching off my parents and get a real job. Dad overheard. Everyone's saying they always believed in you. Everyone's claiming they saw your potential. People revise history when it's convenient, I said. The same people who mocked me yesterday are celebrating me today. That's human nature. I don't know what to say to them, Mom said quietly. Her earlier hostility had transformed into something closer to shock. Your Aunt Susan called. She's telling everyone she always knew you were destined for greatness. But last month she told me I should be firmer with you about finding a husband and settling down. Then don't say anything, I suggested. Let them think whatever they want. A knock at the door revealed my executive assistant, Marcus, looking harried but efficient. Miss Chen, your car is here. CNN is ready whenever you are. After that you have CNBC at 2, Fox Business at 4, and a conference call with the Tokyo office at 7 their time. Also, the governor's office called. They want to present you with some kind of business achievement award next month. Add it to the calendar, I said. Let's go. I moved toward the door, then paused. My parents were still sitting at the table, looking lost and small in a way I'd never seen before. You can watch the interviews, I said. CNN will be streaming live at noon. Maybe you'll learn something about your daughter. Alexandra, Dad said, his voice cracking. We're. Don't, I interrupted gently. Don't apologize now because it's expedient. Don't pretend you believed in me all along. Just watch the interviews. Learn who I actually am. Maybe someday we can have an honest conversation about it. I walked out into the bright morning sun, where 3 black SUVs waited. Security personnel opened doors. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Miss Chen, how does it feel to be famous? Miss Chen, what would you say to young women who want to follow in your footsteps? Miss Chen, is it true you're worth more than some country's GDP? I paused at the car door and turned to face the cameras. Behind me I could see my parents standing in the doorway of their house, watching. Small figures growing smaller. I'd say this, I told the reporters clearly. Success doesn't look like what people expect. It doesn't require an expensive office or a corner suite. It doesn't need their approval or their understanding. It just needs your dedication and your refusal to let anyone else define your worth. I got into the car. As we pulled away, I looked back one last time. My father was holding the Wall Street Journal, staring at my photo on the front page. My mother was on her phone, probably fielding another call from someone who suddenly wanted to reconnect. The house grew smaller in the distance, just another suburban home on a tree-lined street. Nothing about it suggested that a billionaire had been living in the guest room, eating toast at the breakfast table, quietly building an empire while her family called her a failure. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "We need to talk." I had no idea. "I'm so sorry." Another from Michael. "Seriously, lunch? I want to hear everything. Can't believe we didn't know." And one from Uncle Richard. "Always knew you were special, kiddo. So proud." I deleted them all without responding. Marcus turned from the front seat. "CNN is very excited. They're calling this one of the biggest business stories of the year. The invisible billionaire angle is resonating with people." "Good," I said, opening my laptop to review my talking points. "Let's make sure we stay on message. This isn't about my family's reaction. This is about the company, our innovations, and our vision for the future of global logistics." "Understood. Though I have to say," Marcus added with a small smile, "the part where your parents didn't know, that's the part everyone's going to remember." He was right, of course. By the time we reached the CNN studios in Manhattan, "Billionaire's parents didn't know" was trending worldwide. Memes were already circulating. Late-night comedians were writing jokes. The internet had latched onto the delicious irony of parents dismissing their daughter's career, only to discover she was running a Fortune 100 company. The CNN interview went smoothly. Then CNBC. Then Fox Business. Each one asked the same questions in different ways, and I gave the same answers with slight variations. Yes, my parents were surprised. No, I didn't hold it against them. Yes, I understood why people found the story compelling. By 6 p.m. I was exhausted. Not from the interviews themselves, but from maintaining the diplomatic facade. From pretending I wasn't bothered by the years of dismissal and mockery. From acting like discovering your parents never believed in you was just an amusing anecdote rather than a wound that ran deep. My phone rang. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Same result. Jennifer. Michael. Aunt Susan. Uncle Richard. My cousin David, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. All of them suddenly desperate to connect, to be part of this story, to claim their relationship to the newest billionaire in America. Margaret called with the day's final update. "You're everywhere. Literally everywhere. The story has gone international. BBC wants an interview. So does Al Jazeera. You've been invited to speak at the World Economic Forum, the G20 Summit, and 3 different TED conferences. What about the company?" I asked. "Are we getting the attention we need?" "Our stock price jumped 18% today," Margaret said. "Trading was halted twice because of excessive volume. Institutional investors are flooding our investor relations department with calls. We've had 3 acquisition offers just this afternoon, all in the billions." "Good," I said. "That's what matters. The company. The work." "Alex," Margaret said gently, "are you okay? This has been a huge day." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "You don't have to be fine. Finding out your parents didn't understand what you'd built, that's not nothing." "They understood," I corrected. "They just didn't want to understand. There's a difference." That night, alone in a luxury hotel suite that my company was paying for, I finally watched the news coverage. Every major network had run the story. The Wall Street Journal article had been analyzed word by word. Business experts debated my strategies. Social media was filled with hot takes. And in every story, there was my father's face as he realized the truth. My mother's shock. The moment they understood that the daughter they'd dismissed was actually more successful than they'd ever imagined. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Mom. "Please call us. We need to talk. We need to explain." I turned off my phone and went to bed. Tomorrow there would be more interviews. More questions. More people suddenly interested in the story of the quiet girl who'd built an empire in secret. More family members claiming they'd always known I was special. But tonight, in the silence of an anonymous hotel room, I could finally admit the truth. I hadn't kept my success secret to surprise them. I'd kept it secret because I'd wanted them to believe in me before I proved them wrong. And now that I'd proven them wrong, their belief didn't matter anymore. The morning paper would have my face on it again tomorrow. Fortune magazine this time. The CEO who changed everything. But the only headline that mattered was the one I'd already read this morning, in my parents' stunned faces as they realized who I really was. Sometimes the sweetest victories taste bitter. And sometimes proving everyone wrong is the loneliest feeling in the world.